And welcome back. It is Ray Michaels here, Total News Nation and Grassroots 50. I'm here with Janice Trey. Janice, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Yes, no, of course. Now, you are the CEO of Epic Times.
Yes, I am.
That is amazing. It is great to have you here. But you've got an amazing story that brought you to this place. Now, you've been CEO since, is it July?
Yes.
July of this year. And tell us just a little bit about your story. You're not originally from the United States.
Right. So I was born and raised in China during the Cultural Revolutions because my parents were college graduate engineers, and so they were sent to labor camps. I grew up in the labor camps. So throughout the school years, I have to grow sugar cane on the top of the mountains to finance the school. I carry fertilizers heavier than myself. And then during harvest season, because they use hand tools to harvest the crops, so some crops were dropped on the field. So every day I walk hours on the field to pick up crops dropped on the floor. We must fill one full bag, plastic bags, otherwise we're not allowed to return to school. So that was my childhood. And the school took 1.5 hours walking by foot, no transportations. And I've walked through cemeteries, crop fields, hills, and then there were snakes were running. I was like racing for my life.
What part of China was this?
It was in southern part of China.
In the southern part?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom was actually graduated from the #1 technology university in southern part of China, but because of Cultural Revolutions, she was sent to labor camp, so was my dad. And in fact, my mom, I almost lost my brother. My mom was 8 months in the pregnancy, and then they have the one-child policy, and they want to kill my brother. Right. And so my mom went to my grandmom's homes until my younger brother was born. And they gave a hard time to my father. And many people do not understand cultural revolutions. I was in a bridge position when my mom rode on the back of the bicycle to the hospital. All the experienced OBGYN at labor camps doing non-medical related work. No experienced OBGYNs for C-sections. Imagine. So I luckily survived. My mom survived, so it's important to give a voice to voiceless. So when the opportunity presented to me in July to lead Epoch Times, my parents loved the Epoch Times. That was the paper that they waited every week.
Now, where do they live now?
They passed away,
okay.
But while they were alive, they eventually came to U.S., and that was their favorite paper because that's the only source of Chinese news that they learn about voting, because in China they didn't have a chance.
Right.
And I felt like it will be a great opportunity to honor my parents as well. Besides, I have an amazing team, very dedicated, and we practice traditional journalism. As you know, it's pretty much in extinctions.
Yes, it seems as though everybody has an agenda, right? They don't just want to give you the news and then you decide. They want to tell you how to understand or comprehend the story. Now, so the time that you were growing up there, is this the 80s, 90s?
During in the 70s.
70s.
The cultural
because you don't look that old.
Thank you. So I grew up during the Cultural Revolutions, and it was very tough. So I give you another example. There were only 2 times in the labor camp that we saw the television. There was only one television set for thousands of people in the labor camps. The only 2 times we saw the TV was the funeral of Mao Zedong and funeral of Zhou Enlai. And we all have to stand in front of the television to attend the funeral, have to wear something black. And so my association of television was funeral.
Wow.
I have no idea. People at my age in the rest of the world watch cartoons. You know, television was like full of like all sorts of entertainment and news. And also, I'm also leading the NDD TV. So it was like from what the television could do, go beyond and bringing uncensored news in and out of China, because Chinese people, just like Americans, they want freedoms and they want the opportunity to choose the leaders. They want receive information without censorship. In China, they censor the internet. So if you do a search on Jiang Zemin, the former communist leader, former head of state, you find zero search because they have not figured out algorithm that only provide good news about
Right.
Jiang Zemin.
Right.
And so if you search Falun Gong, they actually redirected you to anti-Falun Gong. Falun Gong is based on truth, compassion, tolerance, and they do 5 sets of gentle Tai Chi type of exercise, bring tremendous health benefits. And in China, there were like 4 major health surveys, each of those over 10,000 survey participants, 98.1% improvement in health benefits.
Wow.
And even for those who are not unhealthy physically, they reported improvement in their mental health. And so in the Chinese medical systems, if you work for a government enterprise, you pay first and then you got your reimbursement through your work units, the government enterprise. Then the managers found out that all the people who used to submit reimbursements, they no longer need the reimbursement because after they practiced Falun Gong, they were healed.
Right.
Including people who have like a few months to live. According to the doctors, they live for years. I have 2 friends who have infertility issues. They not only gave birth, but one of the child becomes a beauty pageant.
Wow.
Because Falun Gong is really miraculously helped so many people. It works on the energy. You think of like there's lots of meridians in the body, the health issues, because, like for example, a heart attack because of blockage in the blood vessels. But there are lots of energy channels in the
Right.
body. So any blockage, there's a health issues. And Falun Gong with the 5 sets of gentle exercise, it enhances people's health, improve the immune systems. I give you another example. In the SARS respiratory disease in 2003, my friend's wife was diagnosed with the SARS, and her husband practiced Falun Gong, and he was totally fine, unaffected. So it's also help with the immune system. That's why with the brutal persecutions, people did not give up Falun Gong. Today, still millions and millions of people practice. So back in the February edition of the U.S. News Report in 1999, they interviewed the head of the sports committee. They reported tremendous health benefits for people who practice Falun Gong and save 1,000 yuan for each person. So that saved like billions of dollars, for the countries. And you may wonder like why there was the persecutions, because of the principles, truth, compassion, tolerance. Those are in contrast with the communist ideologies. They are violent. They use propaganda to conceal the truth. And also, truth is like the Taoist principle, compassion like the Buddha's principles, forbearance is like the Confucius principles. Those have been in existence for 5,000 years. Communism imported from Russia, there was less than 200 years of history, and it was never rooted in China. So they worry about revival of the traditional values that will people, if there's a renaissance of traditional values, people realize that China, 5,000 years, there were no communisms. The rest of the world, most countries don't have communisms. And so the communist leader back then, Jiang Zemin, waged a war on Falun Gong and have a systematic persecutions. And they also find it a money-making opportunity because the Falun Gong people, they don't drink, they don't smoke. There's a worldwide shortage of organs for transplants.
Right.
So you don't want a smoker's lung for if you need a lung
Right,
transplant.
right.
You don't want an alcoholic person's liver, if you need a liver transplant. And Falun Gong practitioners, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they do exercise every day. They're known as the healthiest ones. So that's how the communist governments have what we call state organ, a state sponsor, systematically kill people on demands because
Yeah,
they can take
for
a million.
organ harvesting.
Yes. Yeah, so the organ harvesting, in fact, is in a Falun Gong Protection Act that unanimously passed in the House of Representatives. And it really called for the State Departments to do a report on it, and it also raised awareness for American citizens so that they know before they go to China, they are aware of the situation, and also stop Chinese scholars to come to U.S. be trained for the transplants, and yes.
So now, do you think growing up in China, having the perspective that you have, do you find that most people that you have conversations with, do they understand the full magnitude of this? When you tell them the story, they're saying, oh, yes, yes, I understand. But you've lived it. Is it hard for them to comprehend exactly what's going on and what your experience has been up to this point?
Yes, it's we call the Stockholm syndromes. So what happened was people live in China because of the internet censorship. So the information has been filtered.
Right.
And so they attribute the economic progress, the technology progress, all to communist states, while it was not. Back then, when I was a child during Cultural Revolution, I actually received balloons from Taiwan, and they talk about we don't ride the bicycles, we have private cars, we have refrigerators,
Right,
we have
right.
washer dryers. At that time in the labor camp, none of those.
Wow.
But it existed. When I went to LBJ's memorial, his childhood home, and during that period, everything existed back then. So the nice stove and more advanced. And so when I compare to the same history, so there are lots of Chinese who have been misled by the Chinese Communist Party. But more importantly, is a lot of Americans do not understand the transnational repressions initiated by Xi Jinping 2 years ago. Before their major government meetings, he had a private meetings, and then he personally instructed the persecution on the Falun Gong to expand into foreign soil, using the American judicial systems, using the education system in the U.S., and to destroy Falun Gong. And so they attack American companies like the Epoch Times. They attack American performing companies like Shenyun Performing Arts, which is a beautiful, beautiful performance. I introduced Shenyun to Kate Blanchard, and she took her whole family to see it, and she described it as an extraordinary experience, exquisitely beautiful, great for the children as well. And she also told me that it was very courageous that we present China before communism.
Right.
And that's what the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is very afraid of Shenyun, afraid of Epoch Times, because we're known as the only media the Chinese Communist Party is afraid of, because we publish the 9 commentaries of the Chinese Communist Party 20 years ago on November 19th. Since then, we inspired 440 million Chinese Communist Party members and the affiliated organization, including the Youth League and the Young Pioneers, and they withdraw. So China could transition from a communist state to a new communist state, because for 5,000 years there were no communisms. Actually, people see it as a sinking Titanic. They want to get out of the Titanic before it sinks.
Right. I remember I traveled to China for the first time back in 1996. And we were anywhere from Hong Kong up to Shanghai. I actually sailed the Yangtze before it was flooded, before they put it in. And I remember looking up and I said, what about all those villages? They said all of those are going to be gone because they built, the dams in.
Yeah.
And I remember on one of the trips, we traveled to a little village, and every home had a TV antenna. And they had one TV, but it was very much only what the Chinese government wanted you to see.
Yes,
You couldn't see anything else.
correct.
It was very, very controlled. And I guess it's still that way right now.
It is, and that's why people in China, they look to us. They use VPN to get news from Epoch Times. In fact, the Chinese government official also read the Epoch Times because they know that's the source of truth. And for the televisions, people install satellites so they can watch NDT. And they can watch Epoch TVs, so through satellites.
But this hasn't been easy for Epic Times because I was talking to Josh Phillip, and he said that the amount of traffic to stop Epic Times from getting out to China has been like exponential. Now, is this because you came in and you were diverting more resources that way, or you just think that they're worried about maybe the next administration coming in?
Well, Epoch Time has been constantly attacked. They have a larger scale of cyber attacks. I mean, it was cyber attack.
It's
years, it's
constant.
But on major days like July 20th, which is like the anniversary of the brutal persecutions, and so there were intensive traffics.
Right.
And April 25th was also anniversary where people appeal peacefully, outside the Beijing government compounds. So on those days was a significant cyber attack. I joined in July, so around the July 20th. That was partially because of the anniversary, possibly because I came to Epoch Times with a corporate America experience. I have been executive for several Fortune 500 companies in leadership roles, so they were afraid that I may be able to expose, not only to our subscribers, but also to corporate Americas and also to the U.S. government. In terms of the administrations, actually both the current administration and the upcoming administrations, there are many, many subscribers. When I was at the Republican convention and the Democrat convention, I ran into a lot of Epoch Times fans. They were very happy. And we also have great interviews, from both Democrats and Republicans. And we interviewed former attorney generals, from the Democrat conventions. We interviewed, first families, from the Republican conventions, and we of course have many senators, congressmen. Not only they read the Epoch Times, they show me that they have it for their parents or for their children or even grandchildren. So a lot of people love the Epoch Times because we provide truthful information. Let me share with you. We broke the news on the COVID-19 December 2019. At the time, of course, there's no such term as COVID, but we report the pandemic because we have reporters on the ground inside China.
Right.
We knew that the hospitals were flooded with people, and we knew nurses and doctors, they got sick. And
Now this was during, because isn't there a Chinese festival at the time?
Yeah, so the Chinese New Year's is usually in January, February, and it's like Thanksgiving in America where people come home, get together, it's a family unions, and people will come across the country. If they work in other location, they come back to the hometown. And so actually, the Chinese Communist governments already knew the pandemics, but they purposely conceal it.
Well,
and we book the news.
There's also a lot of other countries that deal in Chinese immigration, right? I think Italy is a very big place.
Yes.
And they allowed everybody to go from Italy back to China, even though they knew what was going on, and then let them freely go back, almost
counterintuitive, yes.
Almost intentionally knowing what that would. There was no regulations. There was no concern.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember Nancy Pelosi saying, "Go out to your parties, have fun, be with people."
Yeah. So it was intentional because the Communist Party They knew they have widespread pandemics, so they have the lockdown, but they allow people to travel overseas, to carry the virus overseas. And why is that? Because they want to weaken Western societies that have democracy. Communist China, rather, if it's a sinking Titanic, they rather the whole world sink with it.
Well, and the sheer volume of bodies, the amount of people,
Yes.
maybe the CCP felt that they could, on a percentage wise, right? If you take 10% of Italy or 10% of Germany, it wouldn't be as though taking 10% of China.
I see your logic. However, the Chinese Communist Party has no respect for human beings. If you look
For
at
human life, not at all.
So if you look at the Communist China's history, first they mobilized the farmers, promised redistribute the land. They never did. It was a way to confiscate all the wealth into the hands of the Communist Party. And then 1966 to 76, they first let the educated people to speak up, but then they destroyed them.
Right.
They in the Cultural Revolution, they burned books, they burned temples, they burned historic statues because they want to erase history, just like the cancel culture that we experienced West. And then in 1989, the Tiananmen Square, my best friend was a medical student, and so he personally carried dozens of dead bodies and injured students in the ambulance. So the scale was much wider, and they used the surveillance camera to catch the people who left the square, and they still persecuted them.
Wow.
So, and then in 1999, they started the persecution on Falun Gong. So if you look back the history, communist history, every decade or so, and innocent targets being selected such that everybody lived under terrorism and would not speak up. And that's how they control people.
Right.
And so the way they...
It's a constant fear.
Yes,
Yeah.
and self-censorship, because that's the problem. And I think just like Martin Luther King Jr. said that if it's a injustice anywhere, it's a threat of justice everywhere.
Right.
And if people keep silence when they are aware of issues, it will only spread. Just like a cancer cells, it will only multiply.
Right.
The best way is to cure it, to stop it sooner. And so communism should disappear from the face of earth. Communism is anti-Christ. Communism is anti-humanity. And communism has destroyed. I am a Harvard alumni, and in one of alumni events, the former undersecretary of the Department of Defense showed a chart. So it shows Hitler, 6 million Jews. Under Mao Zedong, 70 million unnatural deaths. Wow. So it was a systematic. But the most critical thing that many Americans are not aware is the Xi Jinping and the Communist China is exporting that on foreign soil. So you probably read that today there was unsealed indictments of Chinese agents that have been worked on years.
Right.
And so there are many Chinese agents, and including unregistered agents. I give you a personal example. I'm a Rotarian, and so there's this unregistered agent trying to kick me out of the Rotary clubs. And the founders of the Rotary Club saying that, no way, Janice is a good person, a good Rotarian. She set the example. She gave a voice to voiceless. Kick the other person out. If you kick Janice out, I will be out.
Wow.
So we were not kicked out. Me and my husband were not kicked out because someone knew the truth. And so the attack has been. We have to be mindful of the Chinese Communist Party using U.S. legacy media, use U.S. social media, and U.S. Legal systems to wage the attack and have the frivolous lawsuits groundless. But by putting our lawsuits, it get the press coverage.
Right.
It create the reputation damage. Yeah.
Lawfare has been used far too much. Well, at Total News Nation and Grassroots 50, we want to educate the youth.
Yes.
It's so important because if you can share the knowledge, it becomes power,
Yes.
right? Especially when you teach a child not how to think, but how to look at the whole picture and think for themselves, right? You see the indoctrination that we have in our schools here, which have, progressively year after year gotten worse. We're trying to change that from the
Yes.
school board on up, and to give them the idea that you have to think freely, you have to understand. That's why we want to partner with you, especially for the youth, because it's so important. We see what Charlie Kirk is doing here at America Fest, and we just love what you're doing over there. But the attacks, we always worry about the attacks that you get, but you're able to fight off every single step of the way, and you're doing a great job with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's I'm glad that you bring out about the youth, and I actually have been expanding programs and about career developments and about because our motto is truth, tradition, and hope. It's super important. Not only provide the truth, but we also bring back the traditional values, which are pretty much being canceled
Right.
in today's systems, and also bringing hope, because if the media only provide like murders, wars, and all the negative stories, we need to tell the stories about uncompromising stories where people are courageous and their stories. There's so many heartwarming stories. For the youth, they are the future pillars of the society. They are actually more important. And I do it not only for my generations, but for my children and for the next generations, like your brothers have three beautiful girls, and also for his children, right? I mean, it's so important that we need to put more resources and attentions and create programs. At Epoch Times and NATV, we have a team that dedicated to that. And in the Epoch Times subscription, if you click students, you can get 5 years of free subscription, 4 years during college and 1 year post college.
Is that right?
Yes,
that is
everybody
amazing.
can get that.
That's
And
amazing.
I give you an example. My son in high school, he went to one of the top public high school, and he had the school force is subscriptions of a media that spread lies. And I said, you need to remove it. I said, cannot remove it. So we need to give people the choice, and we should not let some of the legacy media with the money, with the influence, so to infiltrate it into the education systems, because they should learn how to think and make decisions. Media is about telling the truth, provide information timely, so that audience can make their own decisions. We respect the intellects of the audience rather than provide narratives to pivot them certain ways. We should let them make the judgments. And so at NADTV, we have 9 competitions, and that including classical pianos, including classical Chinese dance, and also the traditional oil paintings, and so wide range of programs that should revive the traditional values and cultures.
Right.
Because if we don't do that, the next generation will not even know the
Right.
existence
Right.
of the cultures and the heritage. And I'm not only talking about the Chinese culture, but the culture for the different ethnic group, different countries. Epoch Times is published in 36 countries and regions, 23 languages. And then NET we broadcast through satellites and reach many corners of the
Wow,
world.
that's amazing. Yeah, wow. So much information. I could sit here all day and talk to you, Janice. This is quite a pleasure to be here with you. We love what Epic Times is doing. And how do they reach Epic Times? How can they subscribe?
Go to theepochtimes.com and then click subscriptions. We also deliver in apps you can download from all the app store. We in fact rank top 10 in the apps. We from a customer favorite rating, we're number one.
Wow.
Amongst the paid subscriptions app. And then we provide digitals, and we also have print subscriptions. So maybe if you don't subscribe to print, maybe you have your parents or grandparents who would love to. And we also do make special care for like the veterans, and we also we are a non-profit organization, so we also take donations. And so for us, Epoch Times, we are independent. We are not subject to influence by any governments, any billionaires, or any corporate enterprise, because we answer to the audience and audience only. So
And amazing investigative reporting, too.
Yes, you mentioned about George Phillips.
Yeah.
I mean, not only George Phillips, I mean, we also have a program like Facts Matters that Roman's doing fantastic jobs, and Jan on the American thought leaders, amazing interviews, and we have more coming out. And so we stick to our truth, tradition, and hopes. And I want to take the opportunity to wish the audience, a happy new year in 2025, and just be prepared for unexpected challenges. And Epoch Times, we are committed to provide you news, timely basis, and also tell you about precautions. I know we are famous for our infographics.
Yeah.
And the most recent one is about emergency preparedness, that we have a lot of readers who are very appreciative during the hurricane season,
Yes.
and wish they have read it earlier.
Oh, I know. Well, I'll tell you what, we encourage you, go to the Epic Times, make sure you subscribe. A lot of information out there. Janice Trey, CEO, what a pleasure to have you here on Total News Nation and Grassroots 50.
Thank you.
My
for having me.
pleasure. And stick around, we got some more interviews coming up. I'm Ray Michaels, and until next time, we'll see you real soon.